everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Friday, February the 10th. Race number 8 at Oaklawn Park. First level allowance for older horses going 1 mile and a 16th. Scan that QR code for race of the day access on mobile, and we'll take a look at this field. Barber Road's a very familiar name. He's 3-1 on the morning line. He placed in all 4 major Kentucky Derby preps at Oaklawn in 2022, raced unsuccessfully in 2/3 of the Triple Crown, and is now going third start off a long layoff.
Yeah, and he has very little early speed, Dan, so we'll see what kind of trip he's going to be able to work out here. I think his first 2 starts back, I thought they both left a little something to be desired, but maybe he's ready to take a step forward here. We'll see if he can, work out a trip and catch some pace.
Your point is very well taken in that he doesn't have a lot of speed. He needs a lot of pace help. We'll take a look at the Timeform US pace projector, and perhaps this pace projector not kind to horses like the number 5 Barber Road. You see, it's a blue bar scenario in Timeform US parlance that favors horses on or near the early lead. B Sud showed some tactical speed last time out. Then you've got the stretch out sprinters, the 4 Ignitus, who showed speed the last time he went 2 turns, and Efficiency, who sprinted off the layoff, but looks like and acts like a horse that will appreciate more ground.
Probably, yeah. The 9 probably will appreciate stretching out for this race, and he's got a little bit of speed. I even thought the horse drawn right to his inside, Dan, Camp David, who the pace projector sort of has mid-pack, but I think that horse could get forward in here as well as he starts back off a little bit of a layoff. But I thought the pace scenario was pretty murky. I didn't think it was necessarily going to be a fast pace.
Let's talk a little bit about the number 1, B Sud, who stretched out for the first time in his most recent start. And he sat a nice pocket trip down towards the inside, and he ran on well to be second behind a gate-to-wire winner. The 4th place finisher of that race came back to run third in a first level allowance, with an 87 Buyers speed figure. He's got good speed. I still have some questions about the distance.
I do too. I wonder if maybe they'll get a little more aggressive with him in the early stages this time, since he has derailed Dan. I don't know that he has enough speed to necessarily make the lead, but maybe they'll go more forward with him. He ran fine last time. His trip overall was a good one. I didn't necessarily care for the fact that he went to his wrong lead and deep stretch there, although he did win the battle for second.
The number 2 in here is Mr. Thunderstruck, a 3-time winner, but all 3 of his wins have come sprinting. And now he's going to stretch out off a 6th place finish against first level allowance competition sprinting. He's won 2 of his last 4 starts. I wonder where he fits from a Buyer's speed figure standpoint, from a class standpoint, but especially from a distance standpoint.
Yeah, I have all the same concerns. I don't know that he necessarily wins this race, even if he shows up with his top effort, Dan. And so far anyway, and we've seen him 19 times already, he just looks like a better horse going shorter.
The number 3 Chileno is very intriguing for Steve Asmussen, Ricardo Santana Jr. We haven't seen this horse since the summer, where he ran in the $250,000 St. Louis Derby against Rattle and Roll, a horse that was in very good form at that point. He would come back to win the Grade 3 Oklahoma Derby with a 100 Buyers speed figure. Chileno's 2 stakes races, okay, but he's now getting a little bit of a drop in class. The layoff is a worry, as well as his running style, but you trust Asmussen or Price in these situations.
I guess we'll see what kind of price he is. I think, first of all, it's not like Asmussen has great numbers off of long layoffs like this. It took this horse a really long time to break his maiden. I would cut him a little bit of slack for that, Dan, because I feel like he faced some pretty tough maiden special weight fields, especially once they got him stretched out in distance. He did finally break through last May, and it's 2 starts after that, both in stakes races, and one of those was a pretty fast race.
The number 4 Ignitus is 20-1 on the morning line for Mr. Lucas, but he actually earned a stakes placing last year, finishing directly behind Barber Road when 3rd in the Smarty Jones. Now, he's been sprinting lately and picking up pieces at the end of his races. I think it's worth noting that the last time he went a route, a 1-turn mile, he got caught up in a wicked pace duel and held pretty well for 3rd.
Yeah, he ran okay in that race. That's how I sort of looked at him too, Dan. It's sort of surprising, and I know that Lucas just runs his horses all the time, and so maybe he just has to take the spots that are available to some of these horses. I'm very surprised he sprinted this horse as often as he sprinted him, though. Even going, all the way back to this horse as a 2-year-old, his better races came when Lucas would stretch him out, and he just, for whatever reason, wouldn't keep this horse going long most of the time. I think he's actually very interested in here as he takes on more distance.
Barber Road, the number 5, is the morning line favorite, probably based on his exploits from last year, where he placed in those graded stakes races at Oaklawn Park. And all in all, I thought ran quite well in the Derby. He got a great setup. He was last passing the stands and going under the wire the first time. The pace was very fast. He did make a striking move while widest on the far turn, and he finished up evenly for sixth. I'm really not interested in the Belmont, which preceded the long layoff, but he's been beaten at a short price in his last 2 races. You could argue that he can be had if he doesn't have things his own way. Blinkers come on presumably to maybe sharpen his speed, but it's a move that the barn hasn't had much success with.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's worth pointing out, because they are putting the blinkers back on, that a lot of that good form from last year came when he had blinkers on. So they're going to put him back on here. Maybe it will make a difference. I'm willing to cut him a little slack for the first 2 starts back from the layoff. And the last one was on a very wet track. It did seem like he was running on at the end of that race, although he was never a factor at any point. I didn't love his return back in mid-December there. I didn't think he did a ton of running there off of a good trip, but maybe he just needed the race.
Yeah, maybe he just needed that. It was his first start since the Belmont Stakes. Cat Daddy is the number 6, another horse that recently competed over a wet track. He's won 6 times in his career, but he's kind of a late runner, and I'm not sure he's the best closer in this race, and he might not get the right setup.
Yeah, more than anything else, I just don't like his running style, really. He actually has more than a couple of races that would give him a real chance in here. I think you have to go back to 2021 to get to those performances, Dan, but he has a race in him that would make him competitive if he can get the right trip, and he's just going to be a huge price in here.
The number 7, Tonka Warrior, looks like a very legitimate contender in this race. He's a lightly raced 4-year-old. You could probably project upside. He's very consistent. He's hit the board in his last 8 races. And we'll watch his most recent start over a sloppy track. He got wired in this race, and he was wide from post position 12 for most of the running. And he's still trying very hard in the lane to finish second. I wonder if this track was a little bit speed favoring. Tonka Warrior did some good things. And again, I believe he has some upside potential.
I agree with that. He does race on pretty well here at the end. There was never a real point in this race, Dan, where I felt like he was going to win. I'll give him some credit for getting up for second. Barber Road is somewhere behind him, a few lengths there, sort of picking up pieces late. Step in the right direction last time for sure. He is a horse who, he did win routing on turf, but his other 2 wins, the 2 dirt wins, both came sprinting. I think he's a contender in here. I don't think I'd be happy to take too short a price on him.
I think you're right that the number 8, Camp David, can be forwardly placed in this race. This horse sold at public auction last summer for $130,000, and just one of the rare purchases from Michael Maker that hasn't worked out yet. He did win his most recent start, but that was for a $30,000 tag, and a potential claim was voided by the vet. So he has to deal with a 3-month layoff, but he is stretching out in distance with speed, might get the right race flow. He probably has to run a career best number, though.
Probably does. He's one of the horses, though, that I could see who's, stretching back out for this race, who I could see actually running better with more distance underneath him. It's just a short layoff here for Maker. I guess we'll just have to see what kind of shape he comes back in, Dan, after that claim was voided last time. I remember when Maker bought this horse and switched him right over to grass, which I thought was pretty interesting because he has a really nice turf pedigree. That didn't work out. Some of his prior dirt races are pretty good.
I wonder if the Connections got a nice bargain on the number 9, Efficiency, who they purchased at public auction for $40,000 back in November. And his first start for them came sprinting for Jerry Hollendorfer. And I just have a feeling that race was used as a stepping stone to this longer race. He was outrun early behind the 2 favorites. He kept on in the lane to finish 3rd. I think he'll do better stretching out, and he has the speed to get close.
I think all those things are probably true, Dan. I couldn't ultimately talk myself into him, if only because I remember when he started his career in New York last year, he's got the one big win where he was entered main track only against a very, very mediocre field. It came back a fast race. He won by 100. I just don't really feel like he beat anything that day. And I can't say that I love any of his races since.
Tough outside post position for the number 10, Amongst Friends, another horse coming into this race in good form. We'll watch his most recent effort. He's going to finish 3rd. He's going to finish 2nd. Tonka Warrior is going to finish 3rd. Amongst Friends, you see, is amongst horses here. And he's going to eventually try to dive his way down to the inside to look for some room, and he runs on late. There wasn't a ton of pace for him to run at. All in all, this was a good effort, but there's a potential for another bad pace scenario, especially from this outside post.
Yeah, exactly. He did run pretty well in that race. Maybe that's enough of a sign, Dan, that he's just, coming back in good form for the new trainer here. and he makes a lot of sense in this race. And he feels like one of the horses who will probably be a fair price in here. I don't have a big argument against him. I just didn't like him that much.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for a very competitive Friday race of the day. Mike, you're going with a horse that's a big price on the morning line, a horse that has speed, has run well at longer distances in the past. Ignitus, the number 4.
Yeah, I just have so many questions about the shorter prices in this race, Dan. And if I'm going to bet this race, and I feel like it's the kind of race I can get involved in, I want somebody who's going to be a price. Ignitus is going to be a price in this race. And he also has a little bit of speed stretching back out here. I feel like he could be forward early in this race, and that could be a good place to be.
I'm not sure I want to play Barber Road as the favorite in here. He would have to drift a little bit off the morning line, considering his running style. He doesn't have a lot of speed. I do think he is rounding himself back into form in his third start off the layoff. And as Mike mentioned, some of his better races last year came with blinkers. 4, 3, 5, and 7 for Mike, 5, 7, 1, 10 for me. Good race. The Friday race of the day, 6-figure purse, and we're going 1 mile and a 16th at Oaklawn. Good luck.